Oui. Est-ce que ça fonctionne bien, son? Bon, bonjour tout le monde. Mais d'abord, je veux remercier le nouveau premier ministre du Canada, Mark Carney, d'avoir accepté de nous rencontrer rapidement. C'est important qu'on se parle de deux choses. D'abord, comment on va protéger les citoyens avec toutes les déclarations de Donald Trump au cours des dernières semaines. Il y a beaucoup d'inquiétudes chez les citoyens, puis il faut que les gouvernements arriment leur programme pour protéger les entreprises, protéger éventuellement les travailleurs qui risquent de perdre leur emploi. Donc, il faut bien s'arrimer de ce côté-là. L'autre dossier sur lequel il faut bien s'arrimer ensemble, c'est sur les représailles. On a commencé tous ensemble à mettre des contre-tarifs. Il faut qu'il y ait des ajustements dans les contre-tarifs. Il y a actuellement des contre-tarifs sur des intrants, donc des produits importés des États-Unis, mais qui entrent dans la fabrication de produits fabriqués dans mon cas, au Québec. Et donc, ça fait très mal aux entreprises. Puis, il y en a de prévu aussi dans les prochaines listes qui s'en viennent. Donc, je pense que c'est important de maximiser les impacts négatifs pour les Américains, mais minimiser, évidemment, les impacts pour nos entreprises. Donc, c'est important qu'on s'entende là-dessus. L'autre chose que je veux négocier, j'ai déjà commencé à le faire avec M. Carney et avec M. Poilievre, c'est de dire, une fois que l'élection fédérale aura eu lieu, c'est important qu'on ne commence pas à négocier à la pièce avec M. Trump. C'est important. Actuellement, M. Trump ne respecte pas l'entente Canada, États-Unis, Mexique, entre autres sur l'acier et l'aluminium. Donc, il ne faut pas attendre à 2026 pour la révision qui est prévue de l'entente globale. Il faut négocier l'entente globale sur tous les sujets. Évidemment, il faut être deux pour négocier. Donc, il faut attendre que M. Trump soit prêt à négocier l'ensemble des dossiers, mais je ne souhaite pas qu'on commence à négocier à la pièce avec M. Trump. Bon, l'autre dossier qui est sur notre ordre du jour, c'est d'enlever les barrières interprovinciales pour qu'il y ait plus de commerce entre les provinces. Bon, moi, je veux être très clair, là. J'ai donné un mandat à un de mes ministres de travailler rapidement pour enlever le plus de barrières possible. Mais je dirais quand même, il y a deux choses qui sont importantes. Un, respecter les champs de compétences du Québec, des provinces, et aussi s'assurer, entre autres, du côté de la mobilité de la main-d'œuvre, qu'on ne vienne pas empirer la situation là, du déclin du français au Québec. Bon, le dernier point, je sais qui est soulevé par des provinces, c'est toute la question des projets éventuels d'oléoduc, de gaz ou de pétrole à grandeur du Canada. Moi, j'ai une ouverture pour ces projets-là. Par contre, il faut qu'il y ait une acceptabilité sociale. Puis ce que je vois actuellement au Québec, c'est avec les menaces de M. Trump, l'opinion des Québécois est en train de changer à l'égard de ces oléoducs, mais il faut qu'il y ait une acceptabilité sociale.
On va prendre les questions. On va débuter par des questions en français. Raymond Filion.
Bonjour, M. Legault.
Bonjour.
Quand vous dites pas négocier à la pièce, est-ce que c'est un clin d'œil?
Excuse, M. Fillon, j'avais dit que je ferais peut-être le même mot en anglais. Si ça ne vous dérange pas. Hein? So, first I want to thank Mr. Carney for accepting our invitation to discuss about the situation, especially with what Donald Trump is saying about every day or every week. We need to coordinate our programs because our people, they worry about the situation, about what Donald Trump is saying. So it's important to protect them, protect our companies, and protect our workers that may lose their job. When we have discussion this afternoon, I also want to raise few points about counter tariffs. We have to be careful about actual counter tariffs and eventual counter tariffs we have in our list, because we have to make sure that we maximize the negative impact on U.S. business, but minimize impact on Canadian businesses. And right now, I had many companies in Quebec saying on metal, on aluminum, on wood, imported from the United States, it's hurt us because it's an input in production of our own products. The other point I want to raise this afternoon, it's about the negotiation or the eventual negotiation with Mr. Trump. Right after the federal election, I would like to see the Prime Minister asking Mr. Trump for a global negotiation, not piece per piece, piece by piece negotiation. Right now, Mr. Trump doesn't respect the agreement between Canada, U.S., and Mexico, especially on steel and aluminum. So it's important that we renegotiate all the agreement. I know also that premiers, they want to discuss about trade barriers between provinces. I'm very open, and I've asked one of my ministers to work on that, reducing as much as possible those barriers. It's important. We are, in a way, losing a bit the access to a 340 million people market, so it's important we use the 41 million market in Canada. But I just want to say two things. First, we have to respect provincial jurisdictions, and we also have to take into consideration the future of French in Quebec. And the last point is about the pipelines. I know that some provinces want to talk about the oil or gas pipeline. We're open to these kind of projects, but since the beginning, what we say is we have to have a social acceptance from Quebec population. But I see right now with what Donald Trump is saying that there's a move. The opinion is changing right now, but we need to have a social acceptance in Quebec before going forward. And we need to have also real project, concrete project financed by the private sectors really tabled on the in Quebec.
Donc, on va y aller avec TVA.
M'excuse.
Quand vous dites, M. Legault, vous ne voulez pas que ce soit renégocié à la pièce, qu'il ne faut pas négocier à la pièce avec les Américains, est-ce que ça veut dire qu'on doit comprendre que c'est le geste de M. Ford dernièrement, la surtaxe de 25 % sur l'électricité qui vous a inquiété? Et au niveau des tarifs, des contre-tarifs, avez-vous des exemples précis d'entreprises qui souffrent actuellement au Québec?
Bon, non, il n'y a aucun lien avec ce que M. Ford a dit, parce que j'ai déjà dit moi-même qu'il ne faut rien exclure, incluant des tarifs à l'exportation sur l'électricité. Donc, ça n'a pas rapport avec ça. Ça a rapport avec le fait que je ne voudrais pas que dans un secteur, l'auto ou l'aluminium ou le pétrole, qu'il y ait une entente Canada-États-Unis, mais qu'on laisse de côté le bois d'œuvre, par exemple, l'aéronautique. Je pense qu'il faut renégocier l'ensemble du traité avec les États-Unis. Maintenant, oui, il y a des dizaines d'entreprises qui nous ont contactés pour dire qu'actuellement, par exemple, sur les achats d'aluminium aux États-Unis, même si c'est beaucoup nous qui exportons de l'aluminium, on importe dans certains cas, des produits précis, ça fait mal à nos entreprises quand, dans leurs intrants, il y a une augmentation de 25 % à cause de contre-tarifs qui ont été mis en place par le Canada. Puis, dans la liste de 125 milliards qui a été déposée, il y a aussi des contre-tarifs qui sont prévus sur le bois, sur le pharmaceutique, dans certains secteurs où ça ferait plus mal à nos entreprises qu'aux entreprises américaines.
On va en prendre une autre en français. Louis Blouin.
Bonjour, M. Legault.
Oui.
Louis Blouin de Radio-Canada. M. Trump dit qu'il aimerait mieux négocier avec un libéral comme prochain premier ministre du Canada. Vous, qui pensez-vous ferait le meilleur négociateur? Est-ce que c'est M. Carney ou M. Poilievre?
Écoutez, je n'embarquerai pas là-dedans. Je vais avoir l'occasion de faire mes demandes aux différents candidats sous peu, peut-être, c'est déclenché dimanche, mais c'est important qu'on négocie une entente, entre autres, qui tient compte des priorités pour le Québec.
On va en prendre une dernière.
Bon, il y aura des questions, c'est ça, si vous permettez. Mais j'aimerais ça vous lancer sur la question de M. Poilievre, qui lui propose des zones prêtes à bâtir pour les projets énergétiques au Québec, un peu pré-approuvées. Êtes-vous d'accord avec ça? Ça n'empiète pas sur les compétences du Québec, ça?
Bien, d'abord, là, ce que j'ai compris, c'est qu'il y a une ouverture de la part et du Parti libéral du Canada et du Parti conservateur pour dire que les évaluations environnementales seraient faites seulement par les provinces. Donc, ça viendrait comme accélérer le développement de certains projets, de dire que le fédéral pré-approuverait dans des zones des projets, bien, c'est une bonne nouvelle parce qu'il faut effectivement aller plus vite vers les projets puis enlever de la bureaucratie, de la réglementation au fédéral.
On va en prendre une dernière en français.
Merci beaucoup, Raphaël Pierrot du Journal. Votre relation avec Trudeau, ça n'a pas toujours été facile. Est-ce que vous pensez qu'avec M. Carney, ça va être différent? Et est-ce que vous allez faire comme Mme Smith de l'Alberta qui est arrivée avec une liste de demandes pour les élections? Est-ce que vous allez faire ça?
Bien, d'abord, j'ai eu une très bonne rencontre avec M. Carney, puis une très bonne rencontre avec M. Poilievre. Donc, j'anticipe d'avoir des très bonnes relations, au moins avec ces deux-là, si un des deux est choisi. Et oui, bien, à chaque élection fédérale, je fais toujours des demandes. Donc, j'aurai l'occasion, là, dépendamment de la date du déclenchement, de faire rapidement des demandes pour les différents partis, là, pour couvrir les priorités. Pas aujourd'hui, parce que techniquement, on parle peut-être d'un déclenchement dimanche. On va attendre le déclenchement.
We'll take 2 questions in English. First one.
President Trump today said that the U.S. cannot be expected to carry Canada and that he means it, that he's serious about making Canada a U.S. state. What do you say to him today?
But first, it will never happen that Canada or Quebec become a 51st state in U.S. Second, when Mr. Trump saying that he doesn't need our products, for example, with aluminum, it's not true because 60% of its needs, of his needs in aluminum, it's coming from Quebec. Only 14% of his needs are coming from U.S., so he needs our aluminum. So that's why we have to be bright and strategic in our negotiation with Mr. Trump. Look at the global negotiation, because on some products he needs us. Like same thing with forest or wood, softwood lumber. He cannot grow the trees overnight, so he needs us.
And who do you think is better to protect Canada against the U.S., Mr. Carney or Mr. Pillai?
I won't answer this question. I think I'll be happy to work with either of them, and I expect that they do a good job, both of them.
Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Merci. On avait tous ce temps-là. Merci.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Just give an opportunity to share some words with you. Look, I think from the work that's been done by our previous premiers and the work that the three of us have tried to do over the last number of years, as everybody can or knows well now, we're in this moment in time where the North has become a focus and the Arctic's become a focus. And so for us, it's a very special moment in time. And of course, we want to make sure that the new Prime Minister understands that. You know, I'll leave it to my colleagues to speak a bit more. We've seen an early visit, which really was important. It set a tone that we think is incredibly important, and Canadians need to see this. But at this particular time, as we, embark on what may happen in the next 30 days, it's going to be incredibly important to see all political parties make sure that they're committing to the North. We know how important this is, and I think as we hear either the conversations or, as some would say, the rhetoric from south of the border, other people are focusing on the North, and we sure need to do the same. I will just say that in the first week, personally, I'm very impressed with what I've seen, the communication from the team that's here, so that's much appreciated. I'm going to hand it over to my colleagues to share some remarks.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Very pleased to be here as well. I want to recognize Ranj as the chair of Northern Premiers. Just an incredible job he's doing. Over the years, we've really pushed hard to really bring the attention of the Arctic as a strong front. And so I'm very honored to be able to work with both RJ and Ranj to really tell our story and the importance the role we have as part of Confederation. Just a few days ago, I had the pleasure of welcoming the new Prime Minister, Mr. Carney, up to Iqaluit. It was great to see the new Prime Minister put so much focus on his first domestic trip to come to the North and the importance he's placing not only as a new Prime Minister, but as the whole country is starting to pay attention to how important the North is and how much incredible of an opportunity we have to provide the country with an opportunity to diversify. We've talked about at many of our Council of Federations and in every First Minister's meeting just the incredible nation-building opportunities that rest with the North between the three territories. In Nunavut, it's been great to see the support from not just the colleagues here, but other premiers as well to talk about nation-building projects such as the Arctic Security Corridor, which is a Grays Bay road and port. And so with that in mind, there's an incredible opportunity here. So thank you.
Okay. Wait for the... Sure, good to see you as well. It's great to be here now. Yeah, he called me. I think whoever put that story out in the Star was totally inaccurate. He didn't ask me for support, didn't ask me to endorse him. He asked for advice, and like I've told everyone, tell the people of Canada how you're going to protect them, how you're going to protect your jobs, your families, your communities and businesses. I gave the same advice to Prime Minister Carney. Same thing. That's the message. How are we going to speed things up in our country to be competitive? How are we going to get permits rather than take 20 years to get critical minerals out of the ground? How are we going to build pipelines west, east, north, and south? And the only people to blame are the last 20 years of federal governments that are just holding things up. So, you know, do we need the support overall as a federal government? Yes. But get out of our way, you know, and let us start moving. Because if we don't, we're going to fall much further behind. And the other message is we need a united Canada. That's absolutely critical. You know, President Trump doesn't respect weakness. He respects strength. And that's what we need to do. We need to unite, move forward. As for the Ring of Fire, we have, you know, more critical minerals there than anywhere in the world. The world wants them. The U.S. wants them, but we can't take 20 years as we've been taking and duplicating assessments, which is wrong. You know, if the province is doing one, let them continue on. There's no reason to duplicate those assessments. So that's the message we need to get out there, and I'll be messaging that to all the premiers that we have to stay united.
And as a very brief follow-up, sir,
Sure.
Will you be helping Mr. Poilievre in the election starting next week?
I'm not going to help anyone. That's not my job. My job is to keep Ontario moving forward, to make sure that our agenda moves forward. We were very fortunate to get a mandate from the people, and we're going to move on that mandate. And like I've proven for the last close to 8 years I've been in government, that I'll work with anyone. I don't care if it's an orange party, red party, blue party, purple party, green party, any party. I'll work with them as long as it's in the best interest of Ontario. Yes.
Premier, what do you make of President Trump saying that one prime minister could be tougher than the other? And do you think that this is interference?
Well, that's President Trump's comments. You know, that's up to him to comment. I have no comment about that. All I want is a united Canada, that we work together, and we really, really work hard to get exemptions on these tariffs. We know April 2nd, globally, everyone's going to get these tariffs, and there's nothing we can do, as we were told in person, and we just need to stay focused and united. There's a lot of things that we can do here, like internal trade barriers, and I want to thank Premier Houston for the great work he's been doing on internal trade. That will add another 4% to our GDP, which is absolutely massive. We're getting rid of all the exemptions when we get back in the legislature. That's going to be the first piece of legislation. I know Premier Houston has done it, and hopefully all the other premiers are going to follow, because it's going to benefit everyone in Canada.
Premier Smith says national unity is at risk unless the new prime minister or the next prime minister meets a list of demands, including removing single-use plastics. Do you agree with this, her list of demands?
Well, that's up to Premier Smith to make comments. So that's her opinion. My opinion is let's move united. Let's use everyone together and move forward united. And I hear my great friend Premier Houston, which has been a great ally.
Premier, will you let your MPs campaign, your MPPs campaign with Mr. Poilievre?
I want to make sure our MPPs are fulfilling our mandate. We are going to be absolutely swamped. Let's focus on Ontario. That's our main objective. So.
And last question, just to ask, Mr. Trump says he would prefer to negotiate with a Liberal in Ottawa. Do you think Mr. Carney would make a good negotiator?
That's up to President Trump. You know, again, I'll be there to support anyone who gets elected, and we'll move forward as a united Canada. That's what we need to do. But thank you, everyone. Thanks, everyone.
So who's got the best question?
Well,
I'll tell you later. How about that?
Joanna Smith with The Logic. When you were here in Ottawa in January for the other First Ministers meeting with the other First Minister, you talked about what you really want to see was some kind of economic plan. Has anything changed, like about your pitch to Carney and potential next Prime Minister on what you want to see out of negotiations with the U.S.?
We're fighting a trade war on two fronts. And we need a solid plan for Canada's economy because the Trump tariffs certainly attract so much attention, but in Manitoba and in Western Canada, the tariffs from the People's Republic of China on canola and pork are having a major impact already. So we need to be able to balance the fact that we're competing with two superpowers here and standing up for jobs here in Manitoba. And, you know, that's my big priority here is to make sure that Manitoba, the West, that your jobs right across Canada are going to have strong backing.
The Chinese ambassador to Ottawa told the Globe and Mail that China would be open to negotiating a free trade agreement with Canada if some restrictions on investments were dropped. Is that something you'd support?
We need to engage with the People's Republic of China, but at the same time, the geography is never going to change. America is our closest neighbor and a really close ally. So whatever we do with the PRC also has to make sense in terms of the engagement that we have with the U.S.
Glenn McGregor, City News. Premier Kinew, yesterday, Premier Smith from Alberta listed a long list of demands from the federal government, mostly related to the oil and gas sector. You may have seen her list, and said we would face an unprecedented national unity crisis if Ottawa did not agree to her demands. Do you think that is the right tone at this time to strike?
Well, I had an opportunity to speak to Prime Minister Carney yesterday as well, too. We spoke about Churchill, which is northern port in Manitoba. A lot of people think of Manitoba and they don't realize we're a maritime province. But if you want to get critical minerals, you want to get agricultural products, you want to get energy products to market, stuff that we manufacture and build in Manitoba, you can do that through our great province. So we're working on a lot of shared priorities. I had an opportunity to meet with Pierre Poilievre and Jagmeet Singh as well too, just making the case on our Manitoba economy. And if you're talking about national unity, I know that there was a lot of talk about the Oilers yesterday, but we all know the Winnipeg Jets won. They're shaping up for a deep playoff run, and I think the whole country can unify behind the Winnipeg Jets this year. Order your jerseys now. There's plenty of room on the bandwagon.
But seriously, her comments about an unprecedented national unity crisis, could you respond directly to that?
The Winnipeg Jets are a team to unify the entire country, and I welcome everybody to cheer for Canada's team.
Premier Kinew, I want to ask you whether or not you think that this is actually a useful exercise, coming here together, having this meeting, given the fact that there's going to be an election call, that the writ will be dropped on Sunday. Is this a useful exercise?
I think it is. And to have Team Canada get together at the War Museum while we're facing a trade war on two fronts with America, with the People's Republic of China, I think it's an important clarifying moment for Canadians of all walks of life. And while all of the federal leaders are about to go hit the campaign trail, Canada's premiers are still standing together to protect your jobs and to protect our economy.
What's the single biggest interprovincial trade issue that you're currently dealing with that you need to get addressed here today?
Well, Manitoba has the fewest trade barriers, and we've taken a leadership role as a province. So for us, the activity that we'd like to see is to just encourage other provinces to make that same move. And we think there's a big opportunity for our economy to grow in Manitoba, particularly with services that we provide to other regions when that work happens.
Hi, Premier. I was just wondering if, as an NDP Premier, you were thinking about supporting the federal NDP in the upcoming election.
En tant que le Premier ministre du Manitoba, moi, je travaillerai avec tout le monde. C'est-à-dire si c'est un Premier ministre conservateur, un Premier ministre libéral, un Premier ministre néo, je serai là pour travailler avec eux et puis appuyer l'économie et puis les emplois de notre province du Manitoba. I'm going to work with whoever the good people of Canada elect. So regardless of how people cast their ballots, I'll be there to stand up for our jobs and to stand up for our economy in Manitoba.
Will you be issuing an endorsement at all?
An endorsement? In the federal election? No. No. That might have been the best question. You caught me off guard there. Because why would I endorse anyone in the federal election? Anyway, thanks everybody. We'll see you soon.
Bonjour tout le monde. Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Holt. I'm the Premier of New Brunswick. Really excited to be here today to talk about ways that we can blow up interprovincial trade barriers. And New Brunswick is leading on this front with a bill that we just tabled in our legislature to make sure that in New Brunswick we will recognize any Canadian credential from the day you land in our province, you will be able to get to work. So I'm excited to invite anyone who's looking for a beautiful place to live with the world's highest tides to come and move to New Brunswick because we've got work for them.
Premier, I wanted to ask you about that. So a couple of days ago, there were a whole host of regulatory bodies and organizations that appeared before the Nova Scotia legislature to talk about their concerns with the bill. This morning, an amendment was passed that essentially reverts it to any regulatory body that already has a labour mobility agreement in place, that they can just continue on with that. So I'm curious as to what kind of pushback you might be expecting from similar groups in New Brunswick.
We've already engaged with our registrars and regulatory bodies and have worked with them to build some of the legislation that we're putting forward. So they understand how it's designed to let people get to work right away and bring the skills that they have that have been recognized across Canada into New Brunswick. And it gives them the tools later on as they move through their process to recognize them and affirm their credentials the way they want, but letting them get to work right away.
Bonjour, Mme Holt. Louis Blouin de Radio-Canada. Il y a M. Trump ce matin qui a dit qu'il préférait négocier avec un libéral à Ottawa. D'après vous, est-ce que Mark Carney ferait un bon négociateur avec M. Trump?
Oh, je suis certain. M. Carney, on s'est rencontrés quelques fois, puis il est vraiment quelqu'un qui est intelligent et il est influentiel, est-ce qu'on peut dire ça?
Ouais.
Certainement, il m'a convaincu de lui supporter et je suis vraiment heureuse de lui avoir comme le Premier ministre du Canada à ce moment, quand on fait face à des tarifs puis une menace économique qui n'est jamais prévue ici. Nous autres, à Nouveau-Brunswick, on a un gros enjeu avec 92% de nos exportations vont aux États-Unis pour notre pétroleum, pour notre fruits de mer, notre produits forestiers et de plus. Alors, moi, je suis confiant qu'avec M. Carney, on va avoir une bonne négociateur pour M. Trump.
D'après vous, est-ce que M. Poilievre, lui, pourrait tirer son épingle du jeu ou pas du tout? C'est quoi votre vision? Est-ce qu'il ferait un bon négociateur, M. Poilievre?
Bien, je n'ai pas encore eu la chance de rencontrer M. Poilievre, mais alors je peux pas, comme je ne le connais pas, mais je suis certain que n'importe qui est le premier ministre du Canada, qui va avoir le support des Canadiens, moi, je suis prêt à travailler avec eux autres pour l'intérêt du Nouveau-Brunswick et les Néo-Brunswickois et les Néo-Brunswickoises et le pays.
Est-ce que vos députés vont pouvoir faire campagne pour M. Carney pendant les
Ah, ça, c'est une bonne question. On a juste rentré à l'Assemblée législative avec notre premier budget mardi. Alors, on avait un focus interne durant les dernières semaines et mois, mais je vais leur demander.
Premier, if you wouldn't mind taking that question in English in regards to who would be the better negotiator, Prime Minister Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre?
Well, I haven't had the chance to meet Mr. Poilievre yet, but from what I've seen of Mr. Carney and the conversations we had, his passion for Canada shines through, his intelligence shines through, his ability to influence is clear, and I think he would be very effective in negotiating with Mr. Trump. I haven't had the chance to meet Mr. Poilievre, so I don't have a comparison point.
And you know that, we all know that on April 2nd there will be reciprocal tariffs. Are you worried at all about the fact that when those tariffs tariffs come, we're going to be in the middle of a federal election. And are you worried about these issues falling to the wayside at all?
I am absolutely concerned about that. Actually, New Brunswick raised it at the table of First Ministers back in December and have raised it numerous times that it feels quite vulnerable to leave us without a point of continuity for one of the most critical moments that we have faced as a country and certainly as an economy. So we have been looking for that consistent presence at the table. I will say I have full confidence in Ambassador Hellman. She's exceptional and has been doing an excellent job, as has Minister LeBlanc. I wonder how much time Minister LeBlanc is going to get off the campaign trail to continue to focus on these negotiations, hopefully as much as is needed, because we can't drop the ball during this critical time when we are trying to ensure that the tariffs don't come in place at all, or at a minimum are diminished to the lowest level possible for the shortest time possible.
Hi, Premier. Mackenzie Gray with Global News. You were, during the campaign, trying to distance yourself from Mr. Trudeau. It was a lag we heard from your candidates. I'm wondering if you've noticed a difference now with Mr. Carney being Liberal leader in New Brunswick relative to was it Mr. Trudeau in terms of the Liberal brand for you?
That's an interesting question. We won a solid majority in New Brunswick, maybe bucking some of the trend that we'd seen, and we haven't had new polling out since. So we're certainly feeling a lot of support from New Brunswickers and from Canadians, because I don't think our country has ever been as united. I love to see the fact that this threat to our existence, to our sovereignty, has really brought the country together, and New Brunswickers feel, as someone who shares a significant border with the U.S., is the most exposed to trade with the U.S., we're feeling a lot of support from our provincial neighbors and nationally, and so it's hard for me to distinguish whether the movement that we experienced in order to win the election and the movement that we're feeling now with Canadians, how to tie that to federal politics.